So a part of that is different than the woman
when they
who does.
just out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show here live only on BeExposedRadio.com. I'm your host, Nate. Don't forget, if you want to join the conversation, call us at 443-642-9403. Join in the conversation at any moment. Today's topic is, what is the village's responsibility to our young black men? And it's going conversation will go a little bit different than what you expect, but we go round it out in this time space. But for me, for starters, um, I am I am having an awesome week, and I am really happy about just the space that things are going in. I don't think things are back to the normal that it was, say, in February, but I don't think it will ever go back to that space. But we're in a space where I think people are starting to find their way a little bit better.
Mhm.
And I just want to say everything that Trump is doing is going to fail. Every opportunity he think he have, every corporation he wants to start, every business arrangement, everything you do, Trump, is going to fail. I'm saying in the inception, not even the actual building of it, but the inception, the idea phase is going to fail. It's going to jump out your head, and every business arrangement you have is going to fail. This what he's doing to this country is deplorable, is despicable. He's messing with people's health and well-being. Everything you do, it's gonna fail. That's just
What
how
do,
I
what do,
feel.
what do you mean? Like, what do you? I'm just trying to
Everything,
understand what
everything,
exactly.
everything that he's trying to do, everything that he is getting out of this,
No,
every
no.
secret
Okay.
intention he has,
Get
it's gonna
no.
fail.
Well, I mean, how do we know the other side doesn't have secret intentions?
But at this point, I
Okay.
am starting to see the actual results of some of the legislation that he's getting passed when it's dealing
Okay.
with people's. He is now made it so now uh, the people who have insurance under the quote unquote the Obama plan,
Mm-hmm.
now the medication that you may be taking,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna, well, I'm not saying him directly, because he's given these orders to these insurance companies and to the system that is Medicaid to now switch out and swap out people's insurance for a cheaper brand or a cheaper form of it, or something as an alternative where people have been dependent on that medication. And I'm not angry
Are you
anymore.
saying it's cheaper as far as quality, or are you just saying it's a generic brand?
It's not just about it being generic. It's a total different medication. It's not even the same medication. Like, it's the medication, but it's just a different brand. This is totally different. You know,
Okay.
I've
Because I'm not
worked.
I'm not educated enough on what you're
Mhm.
talking about. I'm
Well,
not even informed on it,
well,
so I can't.
only reason I know is because I was in a meeting with another organization, and there is kind of an organization that's building itself, but it's more focused on health for
Mm-hmm.
the homeless population, and basically special populations of people. And they're building their board and stuff, and they was having conversations around this. And I actually know a couple senior citizens that are going through this, where the medication that they were going to take, what they have been taking for years, that's been working for them and helping them, is now being switched out for something that they haven't been
So
prepared for.
so
And
is
it's
it
like
is it him actually asking the medical industry to try something different, or is it him just like something different that could possibly work,
well,
especially
trying.
considering that the medications most of these people taking anyway is killing them? Why
Mhm.
why not try something different?
Well, it's not
Why?
about like, let's see if this works for you. It's okay, we're not paying for this anymore.
Because
You're gonna
check
have
this
to
out,
go to your
because
doctor.
some of these doctors have enriched themselves off of these same medications that you're
Right?
talking about. Some of
And I
their
get that.
intentions have been wrong, and they know that some of the stuff was bullshit anyway. You see
And
what I'm
I
saying?
don't have
So
any qualms on that. But there should be a strategy. Even if a medication is harming somebody, you can't just cold turkey take them off of it. So there
right,
wasn't even a
right.
plan that was put into place to wean people off of medications and then supplement that with a
Now,
medication that
now
may not cost as much.
is this like something a bill or is this law right now? Is this a bill or is this law?
Well, it's not a law. It's just the processes that Medicaid is under now. So some rules have changed, not necessarily in law, but rules have changed.
Okay.
And now they don't. And Medicaid has always been like that. And the quote unquote Obama plan abolished them
I
being able.
gotta say something real quick
Go
though,
ahead.
real quick.
Well, I'm
Not to cut
listening.
you off. Listen,
I'm
Donald
listening.
Trump is saving this country. I'm telling you, he is saving
How?
this country.
How
Number
so?
one, number one,
I don't agree with that. So
his word is his bond when he says,
to whom?
hold on, let me turn my phone down
Okay.
because it's going hot right now, sitting in this sun. So okay. So let me cut the AC on.
Yeah, because
So
it's about to get hot.
yeah. First of all, as he said, he's trying to make America great again. And at one point, no matter what we want to say about America and its injustices that it has done, we as so-called Black people and descendants of slaves, our people helped build this. And at some point, regardless of what our position was, even to this day, I'm going to say it's no other country on this planet that that is like this country. I'm not going to shit on this country because my people put and work
But
into
in
this.
2020, I don't think that's a good thing anymore. That there's no other country like the United States. I don't think that that's
Hold on, we got to understand what this is because this is a place of potential that you don't have in other places, and that's what I mean by it. And it's only because of what our people have contributed to this through blood, sweat, and tears that this, no matter what side of the scale we were on, that made America great ever. That's my point.
But I just don't.
That's why I don't think we should be shitting on America or as much as I don't like democratic policies and things like that, I would have never disrespected Barack Obama the way that I see people disrespecting Donald Trump. When
But in many cases, many of us did disrespect Obama. We're still disrespecting him in many
we
ways.
disrespected him by valuing him too much, like he was Jesus and he was gonna come save us.
I don't know, but see, that's not a lot of the people who I know. Nobody ever put him to that pedestal. There was a certain side of us, a sector of us who the idea of there being a Black president. Me, I was more proud because this was something that my grandparents and such and such. I remember my grandmother dying maybe just a few months before he was elected president, never thinking that this man was going to get it. She thought he was going to be another Jesse Jackson or another Shirley Chisholm that got to the notoriety part of it, but never would ever get to it. So I was more proud of that.
He's a Black man because his phenotype or because of his consciousness. Because when I look at him, that's not what I see.
A lot of the things that on paper he said, and then I actually saw. I think the problem is it was a couple points that he represented that at large Black people couldn't get with. And those things for me, some of those things are things that I represent. Okay. So in that case, I had to be just as supportive, not just because he was a Black man, but of many of his policies helped many people, whether we want to see it or not, because we can't see it right now because the results of his policy is what we're living in right now. In the next 4 years, and then the 4 years after that, we're going to see the destruction that was here. Now, Bush was a greedy.
Who's to say his policies were ever good? Because we haven't. Listen, we don't know if his policies were really that great at all. Because
I can see the difference. I feel the difference.
The generation that's going to pay for his policy is not us. It's the ones that's coming behind.
But I don't understand how, and there's many people who argue your same argument, but I don't understand how you could give somebody like a Trump any type of, because basically he is selling off our country. He is selling off our country.
No. He is not. Yeah. That's what Obama and them were doing. No. They were selling the country off.
That's a crazy sentiment. It really is.
Hold on. Let me tell you. Let me give you the proof. This is how you know there was a sick communist agenda going on in the Obama administration. I'm going to show you right here. The Obama administration did not prioritize the people when they gave that bailout money to these big businesses that decided to take that money and outsource their work and put it in these other countries, which Donald Trump has taxed and told them, bring that work here or we're going to hit you in the pocket. Obama and them did that. He did that with
Trump's businesses. A number of Trump's businesses aren't even here.
Out. He sold
a number of Trump's businesses weren't even here. And I feel like the people who feel that way did not understand what Obama inherited in the first place. So a part of me feels like some of those were bad choices. But where we were in the country at that point, we were almost at this point where we are right now. It's easy for us to blame this pandemic on this, but this would have happened to our country anyway. We wouldn't have seen it. You know what? So this is going to be next week. We're going to have to get into this next Friday. I don't want to take the time from the day. So next Friday, this is what we're going to do. That's going to be the cliffhanger. Yeah. We're going to leave them with a cliffhanger right now, and we're going to gear up for next Friday because this is totally left field from what today's conversation was going to be. Because I already started getting to that point, but I'm just going to be there next Friday. And I'm all for whatever people believe and, calling people in, but I want to set it up in a different way so we're not just interceding where we were today.
No, it's all good. It's good for the ratings. They need to see that you and I are not.
I was getting right to say, let me know when you want to tag me in. Let me know. Hit my hand.
That's why I didn't say anything, Marty.
Hit my hand.
Like, no, let me have this conversation after the show, and then we can set out.
So tag my hand. Hit it. I'm on the side. I'm waiting. I'm reaching.
No, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this. So next Friday, that's when we're going to have this debate. So get ready, sir. Don't get no more wisdom teeth pulled, nothing. Because this is where we're going at Friday. But today, I hope that was a nice little zinger for the people that's going to tune into this. Because we're about to switch gears real quick. Marty, hold your horses. Get ready for next Friday. But today's topic is really around what the responsibility that the village has for our Black men. I like to specify young Black men, but in general, Black men as a whole can be included in this conversation today. Curtis and I had a conversation, and it was really, I guess we were just pulling that, we just sometimes just go and then pick out from the conversation. And last week, this topic came up, and to me, I don't really see the responsibility that the village has had for young black men, other than to pump out these hyper masculine, hyper toxic, problematic uh, insecurities, not men, but insecurities in black men. It's a lot to be seen as simply, and I think we have been relegated simply as a human shield, as I said in our conversation, and a financer. And in my opinion, I think that is what men have. And then the other side, procreation and the happy feeling of procreation. I think that's like sidebar because that's gonna happen regardless. But when a man can't be a shield for you, or you don't think he will be a shield, because sometimes it's not even what he actually is, it's perception. We don't see the value in a man if and he doesn't protect and provide. And if you don't see that in him, you're not even gonna give him a moment to have a conversation. And once you are with that person, that's all you desire. That's all I hear from black women outside of they want men to feel, but when a man feels, it becomes soft. He's crazy. He's Kanye. He's this. So it becomes an uneven balance because we're teaching our young men to be stand up gentlemen, to be providers, to be strong, to have the protection over women, but yet we're showing them something different in our personal relationships. And often I feel black women raise black men to be the man that they desire in their bed versus this is my child, this is my nephew, this is XYZ, but I'm raising you in the image of the man that I desire for myself that may be somewhat unattainable. You want to give your perspective on this conversation?
Before I hit on the very last point, the statement you just closed with,
Uh-huh.
I want to say that I thought about some things from our conversation and I jotted them down in the book.
Okay.
And so I would say this in general. This is what I feel the responsibility of the community is to the black. And it's not a perfected sentence yet, but here we go. The responsibility of the community is to protect and provide the necessary resources and environment for the physical, mental, and spiritual development of the self-actualized male, one who is self-governed and values his life. Now, if they produce that, a lot of things in society are going to change. And that's what they are suppressing. They're stopping that from manifesting in society, because when that happens, there'll be no more war. There'll be no more gangs. There won't even be a need for politicians, truth be told. Like the whole system comes to an end when because first of all, you can't work a self-actualized man to death, not somebody from the outside. You can't do that. He's not going to buy into things just because they're the status quo or because CNN or Fox News or the Root or Austin or any of that says it. It's because he'll have his own mind. He'll have So let me speak on this part real quick. When I talk about the to protect, these are some of the specific things that I'm talking about. Number one is the security. This is not just physical, but this is also mental. So we have to protect them from the obvious physical threats, murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and so on. But you also have to protect them from people who can extort them economically, be it creditors. Like you gotta, meaning financial education and financial literacy has to be a part of a culture, because that's what we need. We need a cultural change that's going to do that. That economic responsibility, which includes being able to have shelter and so on, that and finances, the means to move about in society. You have to be educated on that, and we definitely, as a community, drop the ball heavy on that. But that part is the security part. But then you have, like, as far as physical health, we have to have a culture that deals with not simply like being like a gladiator as far as fitness, but caring for your body, how to eat to live, and so on. You know, how to take care of your body, how to rest. You know, things that will be preventative from us having to rely on the healthcare industry.
Right.
You know, that's also a part of the physical security of the male. So education is key, as they say in the Rastafari community. You know, education is key. We have to be given quality information so we can be in formation, you know, right information on how to take care of ourselves. That's and secure this body physically, you know, all the way around, all, with everything that entails. That's just a part of it, you know. Yeah, I got more, but
so and this is our good start to the conversation, because perspective is everything. Depending on how you were raised, you see this differently. For me, I just did not. For me, I didn't see. I didn't see people living the life that I was assuming from what I was being told I was supposed to live. And that was for men and women alike.
Go in on that a little bit more. Break that down for me.
In terms of financial literacy, education, healthy interpersonal relationships, political knowledge in terms of how our country works, what our roles are, our civic responsibility. I felt like I was being pushed to be this person so that person would exist in our family, in our community. I didn't necessarily. I saw college graduates when I went to school,
and that's a hell of a weight.
Yeah,
my opinion on
right. Yeah. So from a young age, I felt like I was the businessman in the making. You know, I was getting up, going to school before anybody else in my neighborhood was getting up to do anything. I was coming back once everybody had finished their day and had their feet up looking at TV, and I was still a couple hours behind that. So that behavior, I then began to see another side of it. And I was trying hard to keep up that momentum because I wanted to be successful. I want to be successful, but I just did not see a representation of that from somebody who was in my bloodline. Not to say that anybody in my family was lazy or were stupid. It was just I didn't see the level of work ethic that was being pushed into me from the people around me. And I felt like I was making up for everybody who did not do those things. So much so that as an adult, I grew really bitter and hard from the attention that I took off of being a child at times, and I feeling like I never really had that opportunity. I went to school year round since my 5th grade summer. I went to school year round all the way up to the 12th grade, and it felt like I was really pushing towards something that nobody else had. So if it's not important to you, why is it important? Why should it be important to me? And I felt like the responsibility of my village at that time was to be an example for what they were pushing me to do. And it's not always an easy process for a transition from male child to male adult. And I feel like often our young men are missing a lot of life's social. Um, so we took a lot of social living classes, a lot of those social things that we need. How to deal with confrontation, how to, start a business. Go ahead.
Yeah, those are two of my points that I have on paper. Community involvement, like in conflict resolution. But I think it has to be more than like, oh, this organized group. There's a paradigm shift, like culture of how to deal with conflict that needs to be established within the community just for that purpose. So when nobody's around, it doesn't go down. You see what I'm saying?
But see, many of us grow up in these communities, especially Black people. We grow up in these communities where domestic violence is on the extreme, where it's either dealt with violently from the person that's beating up on someone, or it's swept under the rug and it's not dealt with. So that's how we then begin. There's no gray area in between that. We're not taught that gray area that is in between that, rather. And for many of us, we grow up not knowing how to solve basic arguments. And most times,
I'm gonna tell you why we as Black men don't solve basic arguments. Because our mothers never knew how to solve them with us. They yell at you. Like, I didn't have that experience. My mother, I can honestly say I didn't have that experience, but I grew up in the neighborhood. It was nothing for me to be sitting in the house playing video games with a friend and see his mother come up and punch him in the chest when he 8, 9 years old, like a grown man.
Yeah.
You're going to be like your motherfucking father. You get on my mother, brother, that was not.
So pause for a second. So pause. So we will pick back up on that.
Let's talk about it.
So that the idea of normalizing single parent families. I, as an adult man now, I look back at who I knew my father, who I've learned my father to be, and who I knew my mother to be, and I would not have wanted my mother to stay with that type of man. So I'm just gonna put that out there right there.
Okay.
Because many of us have this fanciful idea of the relationship based on a Bill Cosby and a Claire Huxtable of what a parenting a two-parent home is supposed to look like.
Right.
I'm not.
That's Hollywood. That's social conditioning. That's all that is.
It's social conditioning, but that is possible, and it's the argument that I always had. We shun Bill Cosby for creating that image of what family is because most of us did not have it, and it seems
that's
so
not possible for the
unattainable.
85. That's not possible for the 85%. That's possible for.
It's possible though, and the fact that we don't see it as a possibility is something wrong with us. It wasn't anything wrong with Bill Cosby's force.
Speaking of the portrayal of a unified family or a family where parents are at the top of their game in both law and the medical field as he was supposed to be, and they were raising a family, because the rich people that I know whose parents are doctors and lawyers, they don't raise their children.
The idea of that, and this is probably a good
nannies
counter. But see, that image had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do with the family structure. It had nothing. We saw them living an affluent life, but it was never about money. We never heard them talk about bills or money, which was an issue because in the
Oh,
real
of course.
that was the main issue.
Okay.
But the whole idea is no matter what you have, you can go from the Cosby Show to the Evans to, it was about the family unit. That's the part that I always defend on that show.
I get that part, but it was not about the family unit of the 85. You know what I'm saying? Meaning it's so one of the things in the Communist Manifesto, when it talks about the creation of the creation of the Boule class, right? Basically, what you do is you'll have some that are gonna slide. Perfect example of what I'm talking about is this right here. I'm gonna show you right here. 85% of the people in this country right now, regardless of their level of education, right now, don't have $10,000 in the bank. That ain't a reality. What we saw on the Cosby Show is not, especially if we look at what we see going on around us, like right now, be it Black community, white community, red community, the Asians that I know that come to this country, the Africans that I know that come to this country, they say they never worked this as hard and where they come from as they do over here. So over here, what Bill Cosby put in front of us, there's a price that you pay to attain that. And part of that is you not going to be raising your kid. If your mommy is a lawyer and your daddy is a doctor, I know doctors, you know how hard they work. First of all, they're workaholics. They're workaholics. We're not going to just be all, I've seen it too many times. I played baseball. I'm not going to say names, but I played baseball in Little League with a prominent lawyer / judge's son in this city. I'm not going to say his name. For 3 years, I played with this kid. When I say daddy was never there.
But see, the problem.
But they had money though.
But see, we keep equating money and success to the family unit because as a doctor, it's still possible for one to be a doctor and the mother to be a lawyer. It's very possible, but when we start talking about pursuits, when we start talking about that, then that's what takes us away from our family. So we gotta get this vacation. We gotta. It becomes so much about the money because you can be a successful doctor and still have the time. My best friend from middle school, his dad was a doctor. And it was just about the time because I saw the exact opposite. I saw his dad making time.
How does that help a man self-actualize and value himself? Hold on. Check out what I'm saying. So you spend the first 17, 18 years of your life in the school system, right? Getting conditioned 6 hours, 7 hours a day. Just like your parents take their ass to work 9 to 5, sometimes longer. They breaking you in, right? With compulsory schooling, right? I'm sorry, I had to scratch my back.
I don't think it's
hold on. So they breaking you in, right? To be on the manufacturing line somewhere in society, right? Okay. By giving you this mass constructed idea of education. So they get you to do that 17, 18 years. You go on to higher education, that's another 4 years, maybe 6, 8. Okay. So the prime years of your life, okay, were given to this pursuit of education in order for you to become this doctor or lawyer and so on, right? And then you got to do, practice and this and that and the other and so on. So by the time you have a family, you're on the grind to pay off these student loans. See, I'm talking about the reality of right now, not just what the show said, but the reality of it. You got these student loans to pay back, okay? So you're gonna work your ass off to pay off $250,000 worth of debt. If you starting a family at 32, maybe, first of all, you don't even know yourself. That's the bigger issue as a man. If you taking that route in life as a man, I seriously doubt you should even consider marriage under the age of 35, because your whole life hasn't been your own to begin with. You see what I'm saying? Like, I'm just being 100% honest. Men, and especially when you work that hard, you get to a certain economic bracket, and it's a whole nother show. You probably shouldn't consider getting married. And that's a whole nother thing, because you're going to have to protect that, because they wasn't in the gym shooting jumpers with you. So
I feel, I honestly, I understand what you're saying, but it's coming from a perspective of what has gotten us into trouble, what our value system is, what we value, because what I hear from you is money is the priority, not necessarily from you per se, but the idea of how we learn, how we succeed is all based on how much money we want or how much success
we're on the assembly line. We're on that assembly line.
But that's a self-induced thing, though. We control that. We control what we are doing. Like, I have a problem with people complaining about the educational system, because we have allowed our educational system to be what it is. We've allowed that to happen.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've allowed our children to go to this place for 6 and 7 hours a day, and we don't have a connection to that space to know what our children are learning. Often, many of the parents, they don't know the things that their children are learning.
They don't. You're right.
So we're putting ourselves into this rat race. So that education is pointless. As a teacher, I see how pointless it is to the parents, because ultimately, especially at a younger age, elementary school is basically free, in the public school system, free childcare. It's free childcare for them. Absolutely. But at the same time, we have to begin to put value on the things in our life that are valuable. Meaning, education is a valuable tool for everybody. Absolutely. We should learn how to do math. I think the problem isn't necessarily what they're learning. It's just that we don't see it being applied in our everyday life. Nobody has to be a doctor. Nobody has to be a lawyer. Whatever you choose to do. I made a conscious decision when I went to college. I was not going to waste my time with stuff that I don't want to do. I initially went to school to become an RN, not a doctor, but an RN, because I was told that field needed more Black men. And I realized I ain't about death, and I ain't washing nobody's shitty ass. I said, what's the next field that I can be successful in? It told me they need Black men as teachers. And I tried all the different fields. I went to early education, special education, primary, second. I tried all of them. And at that point in my life, I didn't like children. I didn't want to be responsible for children. I didn't want to be in a classroom teaching out of a book for the next 30, 40, 50 years of my life. So that I didn't do that. I stumbled on what my actual talents are because I just got tired. I didn't want to quit college. I just got tired. But those were my choices. We have to begin to not standardize ourselves and trying to be like other people. I never tried to be Theo, but in my mind, that's ultimately, I didn't want necessarily a mother that was a lawyer and a dad that was a doctor. I just wanted our family unit. I was so in love with the family unit of that. How they got there was what my life has been about, trying to figure out how do people get to that space where they could be like that. Now, I don't think they liked each other. I think they gave out more ass whoopings than what they actually showed us on TV. But my mind, we are in charge of our destiny, but yet we keep allowing a system to define that. Go ahead.
I agree. The system is, but see, that's part of what we have to be protected from, which means culture of education has to change. I don't think past a certain grade level, we have to be pushing everybody along the same lines as far as how education goes. I don't think
That's up to the parent, though. That's up to the parent.
Well, I get what you're saying, but I'm talking about even in public school. Let's be realistic. Right now, what percent of this country sends their children to public school? At least 60%. Is that fair to say?
That number is steadily decreasing with the idea of charter schools. So charter schools have become the in between public, parochial, and public schools.
Listen,
But
man.
public school is just a standard education. It is up to the parent to take it in a different direction or not. It's not the school system to give diversity.
Listen,
it's up to the parent.
It's the responsibility of the parent to do that at home. Period. Not nothing.
It's all day, every day. It's all day, every day. I'm sorry. It's all day, every day.
Check this out. It is not the responsibility of anybody. See, this is where, this is my black male conscious, the warfare mindset is what I'm thinking.
Right.
If I could see communities just around the corner from me in the Gwen Oak area, a black Arab community, black Arab, black Muslim community is developing, buying up homes and this and that, the other, putting up their masjids and so on in their community. There are homeschools there that take groups of those children and they teach their children. They're running the same formula that's run across Northern Parkway in Pikesville. Yep. Okay? So with this right here, what we have going on is we have our people in basically kind of in a trap. Okay? They're kind of in a trap where we need multiple incomes, you know, especially if it's not a two-parent household. You know, we got other stuff happening that's to supplement incomes at times, but we need the income to be at a certain level.
But see, but look at that. What is that?
That takes the parent out the home.
What is the level? What is the level? Is that based on a certain amount of money, or being able to pay my bills, or
when I say being at a certain level, I'm talking about being able to pay out your bills, because the cost of living now is like, all right, for example, you could get a house in the 1960s down in Bolton Hill probably for what, $15,000. That same house today, $300,000 and $500,000 in some cases. Okay, so the cost of living and how the society has changed through industry and even technology now, how that's even changed in industry. A lot of how we rear our children had to change by default. So I'm not blaming it totally on parents. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we're going to have to make some sacrifices.
Sacrifices, yes.
We're going to change this culture, meaning like by the grace of the Most High, I'm able to provide for my children off of my craft. I feel very blessed to be able to do that. It gives me flexibility to have them during the day. If they needed school's closed, all right, no biggie to me, because it don't change much about my particular lifestyle because of how I'm adjusted. But the person who works in Baltimore City Public Schools, the person who works in Walmart even, you know what I'm saying? A lot of things have changed for these people. You know what I'm saying? Like where they have to make adjustments now centered around their children. They're going to have to make a decision now. Am I going to homeschool? How am I, am I capable of making these things happen? So we got to think about, are we capable? Not just the possibilities, but what are the probabilities? You know what I'm saying? Associated.
But the problem I see that is in your mindset, which is nothing wrong with that, because sacrifices, I believe, is kind of at the central part of what your message is. The problem then comes in at how much am I willing to sacrifice?
Okay.
Am I willing to give up eating them crab legs every weekend so my son can go to that charter school or that Muslim school over there so I can afford it and I have a better grasp of what he's learning versus giving him this standard education that is provided for free at this public school. But most of where we're living right now, we're speaking about parents and grandparents that, well, I'm gonna say grandparents that would have sacrificed in that way. Right now, parents aren't willing to sacrifice because I gotta get my hair done every week. I gotta get my crab leg.
Now we're talking.
And I'm just saying, Mr. Curtis, that's a nice looking van you got there. But did you need that nice looking van? Because you had, I'm just that's when you say sacrifice, we gotta get down to the bare minimum. Mr. Slow Motion Will says you're right. It had nothing to do with the money. I'm thinking referring to the show we were talking about. But sacrifice means, and I preface that saying that I wouldn't want my mom to stay with my dad, but as a child up into probably like 31, like I would pray silently backwards, saying, I just wish my parents would have tried harder. I wish they would have sacrificed a little bit for my happiness. And that made me feel so selfish, but they were thinking about their own personal wants and needs and not about this light that they brought into this world. We don't have to like each other, but we got to make sure he good. And I see a lot of parents doing that. I see a lot more dads starting to think that way because they're starting to connect how they were raised with how they're now raising their children. Join in the conversation, 443-642-9403. We got to go back to our 2-hour format because this is not enough time in the world. But the idea of sacrifice has to be number one. And parents have to understand what sacrifice is. Sacrifice don't mean I get my crabs once a month. Sacrifice is I ain't gonna get no crabs until I save this amount of money. I'm not eating out until I get this amount of money.
Absolutely.
And not just.
Can I say this real quick?
Go ahead.
A part of my philosophy on the evolution of our community,
right,
goes directly with our eating habits. I think if that one thing,
I was just teasing people about the crabs because that's what they.
No. Let's get with it because that's not cheap. I see people who struggle to pay their phone bill, but they have some. I don't eat crabs and stuff, but they have what's the long things called? It look like a alien crab leg.
I think they're like the colossal crabs or something like that.
Yeah, they have all of that stuff with butter, garlic, shrimps, and all that stuff. And I'd be like, how much? $70. What? $70? What the hell? $70 to eat?
I just bought crabs for my mother for her birthday, and it was about $90 for like 2 dozen.
See, that's so. If we could change our eating habits, our desire to this appetite for certain levels of, now I like fashion stuff, but some of this stuff is ridiculous. You know what I'm saying?
It's all to be noticed. Nobody's sitting in that house doing a personal fashion show. This stuff is for other people to see.
That's that ego. That's that ego, that desire to be worshipped and adored. And that's going to sink you every time because you'll get yourself in a car note that you can't afford. You'll get yourself in a mortgage that you can't afford.
It's not like personal experience, sir. It's not like personal experience.
Bro.
I just took a walk around the neighborhood. There's a brand new store that is real hood rich. I saw people. It was raining earlier. And because of the social distancing, these people were standing outside waiting to go shop in the store. Now I'm all about supporting Black business. Don't get me wrong, but it's at least on these 2 blocks of 25th Street. There are at least 6 or 7 Black-owned stores that you can go buy clothes with now. You've never been able to buy clothes in Charles Village before.
Mm.
It was a store just a few buildings over from that, where they could at least went in there to look while they were waiting to get into that store. But they all was standing outside while it was raining, waiting to get into a store because it's a new hot trend.
Mm.
I'm just, I get you. I really do. I think we may be from different perspectives on the same side, but I think we owe it to our children right now
Yeah.
to do better. When they turn 18, go on and get your life.
Yeah.
But get them to that point where they're starting off on a better. You got
Right.
parents that feel like they just living day to day, just waiting to just push that child out.
Right. Because there's no joy in having children these days.
It's all financial. It's just like marriage. It's a financial plan.
Yeah, it's and a friend of mine had a post on Facebook about how in various communities children were being taken out of so-called low-income Black homes, but they could be in abusive situations in affluent homes and wouldn't be necessarily taken out because it's deemed a safer environment.
And they're being taken care of.
Right. So what I told her, I said this. I said, look, when your child has a birth certificate and social security card, they're the property of the state. Period. So when they come and CPS or whatever come to take that child, you're going to go through a process. It's going to be a process on your hands because you're basically holding property in the eyes of the government. It's that's a whole nother conversation. But see, that kind of stuff is what our community needs to ensure that our children, especially our males, are not just another number. Not just another number.
But see, that's what they've been in many cases. How young men are being raised from a home perspective, especially when they have multiple children and it may be girls and boys, the girls are being raised to survive. So they're being taught life lesson skills. And in many cases, the young men are given a pass in many cases and given the dirty work to do. And as we begin to rear our children, I remember when we were talking also, I brought up the Willie Lynch letter, but I think that needs to be, I don't want to say it needs to be rewritten, but the up to date of that is now we're separating our Black young boys from our Black young ladies and how they're being treated and handled and the quality of their care. Now, there are plenty of women who say the exact opposite, meaning they have been raised harder than the men have. And I think those are the same points being said from two different perspectives. But again, our young Black boys are not being set out into the world with any preparation other than his style, his swag, his personality. And we all know we get older. So looks say, I had a baby face until I was 28. And now this shit is grown man right now. But that fades after a certain point.
Right.
The pretty boy, those looks may last, but it starts to wane after a while. Those muscles become harder and harder to maintain over the course of your life. You're just saying it out loud. Your dick, it stopped working at some point, or it may have a working day or a bad day, or these things happen. But this is what we're sending our children out into the world, our Black male children out into the world to hold on to. You know how many male thoughts there are right now on TikTok, on Twitter, on OnlyFans? Over the weekend, I was just scrolling through and I was trying out TikTok, and every other video was a young Black boy with some hooping shorts on, showing off what he got indirectly. And I was like, this is what the fuck this is? Like, why are we here? Like, what?
Part of what's happening now is they're trying to over sexualize everyone. I've even seen it with young girls. Like I was riding in, through the streets today. I was like up in Pikesville somewhere, and people need to be careful with their putting their children outside in. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't need to. Like a little girl should look like a little girl, not like she's trying to be
But
Beyonce.
again, a lot of that is self-inflicted. A lot of that is self-inflicted because even and I agree with you. But remember, Beyonce is a married black woman,
Right.
successful black woman who is
But
doing the things that outwardly that we can see that she's supposed to be doing. Let's take a pause real quick. Don't forget, this is a radio station, Be Exposed Radio. If you want to be a part of the station, it's as easy as emailing us at info@beexposedradio.com, or you can hit me up on my social media, the Artist Exchange, Nate Vashtab Couser. If you want to get on this platform and voice your opinion, we also have opportunities for you to be able to promote your business, your brand, your service, your new song, all your stuff. We got a space for that. You can email us at info@beexposedradio.com. Right now, we have a advertisement from Vashtab Blue Jewelry. You can go to www.vashtabblujewelry and shop. Get your shop on. Spend that unemployment check on some quality art, wearable art pieces made from these loving, clean, sanitized hands only at www.vashtabblujewelry.com. But going back to our conversation, sir, I'm not going to tell you, this week I've been angry. And it's based off of what this topic was in our last conversation and just trying to figure out. And people say if we save our young black girls or our women, we'll save the nation. I think that's true, but I think we still need men equally. And if we save our young black boys and we rear them and guide them to be black men, not just a black man who can tie a tie or who got a nice shape up, but black men who feel, who can express, who can communicate, who can work, who can thrive, who can dream. I think a lot of this stuff, like you said, we wouldn't need politicians. We wouldn't need a baby jail to be built. We wouldn't need those things.
Well, see, a part of what can make, I guess, the restructuring of the psyche, what's going on in our heads collectively, change. A part of it would be dealing with some type of, I would encourage philosophy or a spiritual system. You know what I'm saying? Like
explain how we could do that, or in your opinion, how we can introduce that.
I think we should have a general knowledge of various spiritual systems. One, for so we can understand esoteric teachings of dealing with our inner selves and the outer world, in whichever system we are most attracted to. And then number two, because I know this for a fact, just having a degree of awareness of other people's cultures will allow you to go in places that you would not be able to go otherwise. People will see you different if you know 500 words in another language and can,
they look at you differently. They treat you
differently. Absolutely. And it means something. Like I think that should be. Man, I have so many things on paper that we could talk about. We ain't even got to get to it in this show, but small things like that.
Go ahead. Go down the list. I mean, we got time. Go ahead.
Okay. So, as far as that education element, like Dr. Amos Wilson said, your education has to be centered around the problems you have to solve. So you can't just give everybody the same. It kind of has to be centered around them. So by default, what we as black males have to deal with in this country is not the same thing that white males in Carroll County got to deal with. It's not the same problem. So our education has to be different based on our circumstances. And so certain general things, yeah. But the real part, education, really has to be able to alter the course of one's life. So perfect example, Dr. Wilson again said this: if you take 2 glasses of water and you pour equal into both glasses, but one glass is already half full and the other is empty, all you do is maintain the difference. And that's what he used as an illustration of why the education can't be the same. Because this education has to be so-called revolutionary in order for it to either catch up and or surpass. You have to give more to this one. You can't. This education is going to be conservative. This one has to be one that conserve what? It has to be, I got to acquire, I have to attain and elevate beyond, not just I want to be equal to, I had to say it like this, the white people. No, you're already you're starting here. And even if your parents had a little bit, let's be real, with this phenotype, you're already starting at a social disadvantage.
I really, like, I swear, and it's only because I've been a student and I've been in the school system. And I don't think our school system by large, our public school system is any better. But the same problem is happening across the board in education. Mm-hmm. It's the same problem because actually, maybe this school is teaching a little bit more. Like I told you the story about having to go to a public school for a quarter, and the total amount of classes was changing. But I cannot take out the responsibility of the parents first. The parents' responsibility is first and foremost. Mm-hmm. And education, the school system, no matter what school you go to, is teaching your children excerpts of information. Now, there's some standards that have to be happening, like you should be reading on this level, and as you matriculate, you should be on that level or above that level. But that starts at home as well.
Absolutely.
And it's just, and it's hard right now because I see a lot of individual school systems, like individual schools, trying to offer wraparound services. That's why HBCUs are so important, because many of them teach wraparound services or offer wraparound services that are for us to be able to achieve a little bit more while we're matriculating together. So some people come to school. Go ahead.
Let me clarify my statement about the difference in education a little bit more. So, what they sit in their house and talk about at the dinner table is not what we sit in our houses and talk about. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm not worried too much about the system, as much as like I say, like when I say it's 100% the responsibility of the parents. Even if you send your child to school, don't leave that in the school system's hands, because at the end of the day, you really know what they're teaching them. You have to have some initiative as a parent, and you have to give them the proper social awareness, to give them the proper health information, the proper everything. Like it's your responsibility. I know it's certain things that my daughter is in the Howard County school system. I have to check things that she comes home with through conversation all the time, because she has some white feminist teacher who told her some bullshit that I had to remove from her mind. No, that's not what it's gonna be. So I'm one of them hands-on. I'm in there trying to, like, I don't go in the school building as much as, and now it's definitely not going to be that way.
Right.
It's certain things like for me to
But it
teach
should
my
be
children.
easier now to be involved. Now, parents don't have no excuse not to be involved now.
Absolutely, and we should prioritize the learning of our children. I mean, even down to the thing like at definitely at 10 years of age, you should know how to use a stove. You should know how to iron clothes. You should know how to wash clothes. You should know certain things about hygiene and maintenance of your body, awareness of your body parts. All it's certain general things that you should know as a at a certain age as a child to help you start acquiring personal responsibility, character traits. In my house we had chores. We got allowance.
Chores. I don't think they was called chores. That shit was work.
Well, yeah. Because we were folding clothes. Like when I was 8 Saturday morning, I got to watch the 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. cartoon.
Oh, you was privileged. You were privileged, sir.
It was clothes folding.
Because when that music started, you know to get up.
Yeah, it was go time. So, home economics, I had that in middle school. I don't know why they, took it out, but those are skills those are life skills,
But and this is, and honestly, and I'm a teacher that I teach less and I give more life skills, and that's just how I've had to do it because it's frustrating seeing children come into the classroom without basic knowledge of how to be respectful. But those things need to be taught at home. I should not be teaching you how to fold clothes in second period. That's
right.
That's not no.
Well, let me tell you why that happened. Because they were going to acquire control of the children. So with you doing that, when they knew the day would come where mommy and daddy would both be out the home, because mom wants to be a professional woman too, and dad, let me say this real quick. For people who don't know, especially for the sisters, I want to tell y'all this. No man really enjoys working for another man. So all these jobs and stuff that y'all chasing, you have no idea of y'all learning right now the stress that comes with dealing in this beast world that men have been dealing with forever. Because it's not a pleasant world. Sometimes it's very cutthroat, it's very nasty. You deal with social issues such as bullying, like even as adults, like it's a lot of y'all know, because most of the women I know don't like working with women. So when I say men deal with shit all the time, social pressures, certain things that we are not even raised necessarily. Like I think men should learn some type of self-defense system growing up, because we have to. It's certain things, like, because you're 100% responsible. When you walk out your door, you're responsible for yourself. Ain't nobody coming to save no man. Ain't nobody coming to save him. And nobody want to hear, but if the damsel in distress cries out, everybody's coming. Trust me, the social contract that's why when I hear, even on the news, when I hear people go off about they shooting women and children now, and I'm like, well, they've been shooting men, and y'all act like it's worse now that women and children that disgusts me.
Because he should have been able to defend himself. That's always the argument.
Yeah, like, well, it's just another man gone. Like, that goes back to that security I'm talking about. We have to culture ourselves out of saying that Black male lives matter only to the point of them being sacrificial lambs. We gotta stop that.
That's where this conversation came from. That idea of being human shields and finance. That's
Yeah.
that was the
No,
meat and potatoes of it.
that I'm definitely not teaching my sons to go out that way. I'm not instilling that in them. I'm teaching them that you know you do have a responsibility to society. But one of the things I've been thinking about lately is that, you know, say I'm in a random spot and I see an injustice happening, a person being victimized by another person in a way that normally would require the police getting involved. That's exactly who I'm going to call to get involved, because I'm not running to be cat and save them for nothing, because my daughter and my children need me to come home.
Right.
They need me to come home. Now, people was, are you less than a man? Men just, because I see that man shaming all the time when we see this drama escalating in the streets. Listen, if a man has children, a wife at home, a family, hell, if he ain't got none of that, your life matters. Make sure you okay. Because at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? I don't like the idea. We've seen it happen too many times. Men call themselves intervening in situations that they're not equipped for. And it cost them their lives. And it's no hero. It's no holiday for them after they did. It's no holiday for them after they did. You know, nobody remembers you anymore. So that's one of the things that has affected me and has changed about me. Whereas I had a history of running into these situations at times, being, you know, I'm not saying you don't speak up, you know, but your life matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, your security matters. Sometimes you could, you know, everybody's crying. I'm not a defund the police guy. I'm let the police handle that shit guy. That's what I am, because I need to get home to my children.
And it's so because we're almost at that time. I wanted it's frustrating, and I'm not at a space where I'm giving up, but it's frustrating. And just to kind of tie it all together, I had I've been watching a lot of I love watching interview shows. I don't care who's doing it. Some of them I can't watch that well because some of it is nonsense, and it becomes something that I don't align myself with. But I shared on our social media pages, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, an interview with Joe Button on the Joe Button podcast, and it had to do with DMX during the versus battle between him and Snoop Dogg. Now, I watched that battle, but I don't. I had to go back and watch to hear him say it, and he didn't throw it away, but he made the statement, and it was awkward, even in the comments. And I watched the podcast, the Joe Button podcast, and the gentleman, a white gentleman, I might have to preface that, brought up the fact that DMX had been molested at the age of 13 by, I believe, like a 26-year-old woman. And in DMX mind, the lady must have offered him a pair of tennis shoes not to say something or to do it to her or whatever it was. And he equated that happening to him with why he's been so promiscuous as an adult and from that point on. And it's well known. The problem I had with the conversation on Joe Budden's show was more so the two black gentlemen that were also on camera. One seemed uncomfortable and just got quiet. So Button is not a quiet person. So he outwardly began to almost snicker and laugh and say things that showed how uncomfortable he was.
Right.
He prefaced that uncomfortability by saying, "Well, that's how most men start having sex." The white man who brought it up, and I don't want to keep calling him a white man, but I'm gonna learn his name. But it was just the fact that it was a white man defending us,
and both of the brothers were visibly uncomfortable speaking on it.
And it's not me downing them, and that's not what we're
Right.
saying. We're not down. We could see how uncomfortable they were, but how they
Mhm.
dealt with it was one gentleman that was quiet was like, "Yeah, I see it, but you know," and kind of tried to ease out of the conversation, whereas the other one joked his way out of it. And the guy brought up a point. There were over 1 billion impressions, meaning it doesn't mean 1 billion people saw it. I think it was like 200 and some odd million uh, um, one person viewers watched this. Over 1 billion. And if this was uh, Jill Scott saying this in her versus battle, the world would have paused.
Oh
It
yeah.
would have showed sympathy and would have wanted more information on who the person was. And at this point, we would have gotten the babysitter's name, address, where they work at.
Mhm.
We would have figured out all of that stuff at this
Mhm.
point. But
Mhm.
because it was DMX, and DMX is as I always say, men only normally receive the help when they're so far gone in any given
Mhm.
circumstance. But
Mhm.
because DMX has a reputation of being a drug addict, an alcoholic, he cheats on his wife, he's very verbally abusive towards her, he doesn't really take care of his children, he's been in and
Mhm.
out of jail, in and out of trouble. He's like the bad boy of hip hop, one of the bad boys of hip hop, and he just had this loose cannon reputation. People did not see it, and he's a black man. People refused to see it,
Mhm.
went over it, and I was just interested, and we probably got like 6 more minutes left, but
Mhm.
I was so pissed off and watching it.
Mhm.
I was so pissed off because he wasn't even in the room, and you couldn't take the issue seriously.
Mhm.
It got into a place where we can't even. It's not even about dealing with it. We can't even talk about how a man hurts without it being
Mhm.
funny or
Mhm.
insignificant or not valid.
Mhm.
And I think my question on my post was, at what point will men be allowed to feel and get through the trauma that they've been through? At what point can we? And maybe I just saw it because I've been on that side, and I've been molested, and then within the same year I was also, in my opinion, kind of pressured into having a threesome with a grown man and a young lady uh, that was, we were about the same age at our job. And
Mhm.
I just felt so out of place. But we'll talk more about that specific incident upcoming because I have a certain show that we're doing that on. But
Mhm.
from what you saw, and I just took out maybe 4 minutes or so of it, and
Mhm.
that was all they spent talking about it. That's all the time. I took out the whole piece of them talking about it. That 4 minutes of a hour and a half, 2 hour podcast. Can you, in your own words or your own perspective, tell me what you thought of it?
Um, I think the reaction of the two brothers on the show was the reaction that we see often in our community
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to talking about child molestation, pedophilia, sexual assault. Um, and it's one that's conditioned because it's the same condition we learn from family that you don't talk about it. So with
Yeah.
them, it's like we as men, we know we'll go talk to our friends and like, that's why he said, that's how most of your friends was,
Uh-huh.
yeah, let's be real about it. Most that's not uncommon.
I
So
think they called it a
that's a
badge of honor for
problem.
black men.
It's not a man. Listen, it's probably the case in millions of cases.
Mm,
Let's just be real. That's
right.
probably the case in millions of cases with men. So you know, it's looked at because the false idea of male strength, once again, is that that's not supposed to have a 13-year-old male. Listen, man, I've been in situations where I was sexually aggressed from a woman and didn't know how to, like, I'm just shocked, you know, and shocked that it's happening in the environments it's happening in, and so on and so forth. Like, man, listen, things can happen. Things can happen where, especially if you green and sometimes you just curious and got those hormones popping. It's easy for a school teacher that a young, horny 14, 15-year-old boy is, because he's a boy at 14 or 15, especially in today's society. But he may already be a hypersexual boy due to what he's ingested and what he's been around and exposed to, even if he hasn't acted out yet. But he might have that one teacher, and she might catch him at the right time and screw his little head up. You know what I'm saying? Turn him out. You know, it happens. There's a lady in the neighborhood who he helped with her groceries might want to, you know, you never know. Stuff happens, you know. So
I just think we need to adjust the indifference we have with when something happens to a woman versus when it happens to a man, and how we deal with it in terms of a community, how we deal with it in private, how we learn how to get through it. It I've been able to a certain degree get through some of the trauma that happened to me as a teenager. But it's still, when I hear that, I understand how triggers can happen. And it was, I wouldn't say it was necessarily triggering to me, but men talk about how we're treated all the time, yet we still have conversations like they had on that show. And we deal with situations, we keep wanting different outcomes with the same behavior attached to it, and it's never going to get better. It's not.
Right.
Had those men, and I'm not saying Joe Button is like so got so much integrity, but if had they had that conversation, that real conversation on that show, who's to know?
You see, the Joe Button and them didn't want to get in that hot seat. See, because they know them as black men saying it, the consequences are going to be different. Unfortunately, it don't mean that the white male wouldn't have faced some type of backlash, because I'm sure all the feminazis would have came for him too. But at the end of the day, like the consequences for Joe Button saying something about it, when all of the Jill Scotts start commenting, and the Chanel Monets, and you know, and all of them.
Just look at how they just reacted to that black football player calling Jill Scott ugly. Like it was and it was for men and women alike. It was just, you know, and I'm not putting her on trial because she had no control in it, but look at how that ground swelled up so fast to defend her. Just look, and it was. I'm just saying, like apples and oranges, but at some point, it's all fruity.
Right, and see, I think that's like the point. We need to see souls. I think that would be the solution. Seeing the soul.
It's so many people detached from their own. They can't see nobody else's if you don't have your own.
Right.
That's I don't want to give up on us, but it's hard to keep pulling, and somebody's pulling in the opposite direction.
Right.
It's hard to keep on that. That tug of war game with our souls, like you said, our salvation, our souls, just our. It's nothing else. Our souls. It's hard. This has been another episode. It's hot, sir. It's hot. of the Artist Exchange Radio Show. These Fridays are therapeutic for me. It really is helping me to put things into a different perspective and how I treat other people and how I allow other people to treat me. Um, and just being able to communicate with another brother and just being able to honestly speak, even when there's a difference of opinions, because we gonna get on that Trump shit next week. I don't know what the hell you talk about, but I really am. I appreciate the honesty, the openness, because it doesn't happen a lot. And as this grows, I want people to be able to see themselves and be able to add to the conversation. And people are welcome to join in at any moment. But any last words, sir? The grown man.
Uh, I don't really have much to say. I just say stay tuned. Hopefully, people will tune in and call in next time and give some feedback and toss some ideas around. I'm glad that you had me on again, and peace to everybody.
Peace out, people. Next up, it is the Cocktail Social. Tune in for that. That starts at 7 o'clock. We're wrapping up. Peace out. Good night. I guess it's gonna rain this weekend. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out to Sandra Meekins, Joshua Dixon. Their brother Mustafa was killed last week. And the funeral is this weekend. So just sending a prayer out to that family, another senseless act of violence. But it's chalk it up to that's what the game is. My love go out to the family, the Dixons, and Sandra Meekins. Peace out.
Mm-hmm.